Asia Times, 15th of November 2023, the Philippines and Big Bully China engaged in a solitary battle. China is using all-out force to compel the Philippines to submit by coercion. When questioned about the escalating tensions in the South China Sea, Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong responded, "Are you sure you, Filipinos, want to get into a fight where you will be the battleground?" at a recent event in the city-state. The leader's remarks were made soon after another incident involving Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard soldiers that raised the possibility of conflict. During its most recent resupply run to the contentious Second Thomas Shoal, a feature that precariously supports a detachment of Filipino soldiers atop a grounded vessel, Manila accused Beijing of engaging in dangerous maneuvers. In the recent episodes surrounding the shoal, Beijing has continuously maintained that Manila is the provocateur. After Beijing claimed that it had entered the waters adjacent to Second Thomas Shoal reef in China's Spratly Islands without the permission of the Chinese government, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel opened fire on a counterpart ship from the Philippines using a water cannon. China has cautioned the Philippines not to risk an armed conflict by renovating the BRP Sierra Madre, which serves as the de facto naval base in the region. For its part, Manila has argued that the Second Thomas Shoal is not even a territory to be claimed by Beijing because the disputed feature is only a low tide elevation within its continental shelf, as per a 2016 arbitral tribunal ruling under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. The Philippines has received public support from Western powers, Japan, and traditionally neutral countries like India in the wake of several close calls and near collisions with Chinese naval troops in recent months. However, most ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, members have spoken little. Singapore's leader Lee stated, "The South China Sea is important, but it is not the only thing at stake," adding that he hoped none of the opposing claimants in the area truly want to push it to the brink. Though none of them are retaliating as strongly as Malaysia, Vietnam, and Indonesia also hold the Philippines' rival maritime claims against China. However, many Filipinos took offense at Lee's remarks, lamenting their ASEAN peers' lack of support, if not outright abandonment, in their growing maritime rivalry with the Asian powerhouse. Philippine uniqueness. The Philippines considers itself an essential part of the global South, having been the scene of Asia's first anti-colonial revolt. Its UN voting record has coincided chiefly with that of other post-colonial countries, particularly ASEAN members. Simultaneously, Manila has sided with more democratic Western countries in numerous significant UN votes, including those concerning the establishment of the State of Israel, the recent crisis in Ukraine, and the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. At the 1955 Bandung Conference, the Philippines maintained a respectful distance from its more communist-friendly counterparts, most notably Indonesia and India, throughout the Cold War era. Despite being one of the founding members of ASEAN, initially formed as an anti-communist alliance, the Philippines has had tense relations with its neighbors. This is primarily due to Manila's isolation from the rest of Southeast Asia, both geographically and culturally. Compared to all other ASEAN capitals, Manila is geographically far closer to Taipei. Manila is near major Southeast Asian cities like Jakarta, Singapore, Guam, Tokyo, and Seoul. Significant geopolitical ramifications resulted from this, chief among them being Manila's historical centrality in establishing the larger framework in Northeast Asia and the Western Pacific. The Philippines' cultural separation from the rest of ASEAN is as noticeable, given its history as a Spanish and American colony. The Philippines, a country with a Catholic majority and a long history of liberal democratic governance, may have more in common with Latin American countries than some of its close neighbors. Furthermore, the Philippines, the United States' oldest ally in Asia, has served as a crucial hub for Washington's expansive regional strategy. The Philippines, which already has a status of visiting forces agreement with Australia, is the only Southeast Asian country to support the Australia-UK-US AUKUS defense alliance publicly. It's also the only state in the region seeking a pact with Japan akin to the Visiting Forces Agreement. Its geopolitical alignment reflects the Philippines' strategic culture and mounting dissatisfaction with ASEAN. Manila has relentlessly advocated for increased regional diplomatic action to safeguard the interests of smaller South China Sea claimant states for more than 30 years. The Ferdinand Marcos Sr. administration organized regional states to collectively advocate for the rights and interests of smaller maritime nations in the UNCLOS negotiations during the 1970s UNCLOS negotiations. In the late 1980s, following the deadly Sino-Vietnamese conflict over Johnson's South Reef, Manila began advocating for a regional code of conduct, COC, for the South China Sea. As a preamble to a legally binding COC, ASEAN and China finalized a transitional declaration on the conduct of parties, DOC, in the South China Sea in 2002, thanks to persistent diplomatic efforts by several Filipino governments, most notably under the administration of Fidel Ramos. Despite the passage of 2 decades, ASEAN has been unable to finish even a final agreement text due to China's persistent procrastination and inconsistent signals over the lengthy negotiations. ASEAN's deafening silence. The COC negotiations have mostly been pro forma rather than substantial because most ASEAN countries depend highly on China's markets and economic generosity. To the Philippines' dismay, many ASEAN neighbors, most notably Cambodia, which is regarded by many as a satellite of China, appear disinterested in even engaging in a dialogue about the conflicts. A few months after Manila had ceded sovereignty of Scarborough Shoal to China, Hsien, the ASEAN's rotating chairman, attempted to prevent any discussion of the conflicts, causing a severe diplomatic crisis in 2012. Benigno Aquino, the president of the Philippines at the time, cautioned, "The ASEAN route is not the only route for us." No ASEAN country publicly backed the Philippines when it filed an international arbitration action against China in The Hague. As soon as it became evident that the historic legal battle was going to pay off, Hun Sen attacked the Philippines, saying, "It is wrong for Cambodia, using Cambodia to challenge China. This is entirely a political matter, not a legal one." Furthermore, ASEAN did not mention or support the arbitral tribunal ruling in The Hague that rejected most of China's maritime claims favoring the Philippines. The lone exception was Vietnam, which tacitly backed the Philippines' arbitration suit and subsequently accepted the precedent and its legal ramifications for its South China Sea claims when the final decision was made public. Since then, Vietnam has debated whether to sue China in a different court for their maritime conflicts. Singapore has long supported a rules-based system in the area even though it does not have a claim in the South China Sea. Lee also underlined the significance of UNCLOS as a framework for handling maritime disputes in the area before the 2016 arbitral tribunal decision. Leaders in Singapore, most notably the late Lee Kuan Yew, have also consistently stressed how critical it is that the United States act as China's regional economic and military counterweight. Despite not being a treaty ally, Singapore has strong defense ties with the United States. This includes the 1990 Memorandum of Understanding, the 2005 Strategic Framework Agreement, and the 2019 Protocol of Amendment to the 1990 MO, which gave the Pentagon substantial access to the city-state's naval facilities. The United States approved the permanent transfer of defense equipment worth more than $26.3 billion to Singapore from 2019 to 2021 alone. Notably, the city-state is the only Southeast Asian country with access to F-35 fighter fighters produced in the United States. Given this, the Philippines, where most people support taking a more aggressive position against China in concert with allies, reacted to the Singaporean leader's recent remarks on the South China Sea disputes with confusion and disapproval. Enrique Manalo, the Foreign Secretary of the Philippines, has previously stated that the maritime issues are not the sum of the country's bilateral relations with China. Nevertheless, following 6 years of unproductive teasing with Beijing during the Rodrigo Duterte administration, Manila is resolved to draw the line in the South China Sea to safeguard its fundamental interests. Furthermore, there is a growing belief that Manila should rely more on its traditional Western allies rather than fellow ASEAN members, many of whom seem more eager to appease Beijing than uphold regional solidarity, given that the rest of ASEAN has remained largely silent on the Philippines' mounting struggle that is on the verge of confrontation.